Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Being the Channel Masterclass. I am so grateful and so excited to be doing this because this really is the official launch of my coaching business. And I mean, I honestly feel like I was born to be a coach. It's something that I just do naturally and have been doing for years, but haven't really had the courage to go on and make it a business, make it something that I offer as a service. And so to actually be able to do it and to have people support me, people who I really resonate with and feel like are just like my soul tribe, it's a huge honor. So I just want to thank you all for being here, for taking the time out of your day to tune in. This is going to be a really valuable class. And I want to just start by allowing us to kind of get present in the space. I want us to all take 3 deep breaths together, really inhaling and then sighing it out. Just so I know we all have really busy days. It's like evening time now. Kind of just let go of all the tension that's built up throughout the day so we can be fully here right now and really absorb everything that is coming into the class. All right. Okay, let's do 1 breath all together. Inhaling. And big sigh, exhale. One more time. Inhaling and big sigh, exhale. Last one, inhaling deep. And big sigh, exhale. Nice, I'm feeling better already. I don't know about you guys. So how this is gonna work, I'm gonna ask you to keep yourself on mute. Cameras are very much welcome. I love to see your faces. Love to feel like I'm really talking to you, interacting with you through our body language. But if you do have any questions as we go through the material, please pop them in the chat. I'll be reading the chat and try to answer them in real time. Or if there's any just like breakthroughs and you're like, wow, I remember when this happened in my life, anything that you can add to the conversation, please do so. This is a community experience, and I want you to feel like you are contributing because you have so much value to share as well. If you feel like there's something that really hit home for you, you want to take a screenshot of this call and post it on your story and share it with your audience, I would love and really welcome you to do that. It's one of the best ways you can help me. Just get the word out and support my business and support all the messages that are coming through today. Yeah, super grateful for all of you to be here. Really, my intention for this class is to have you leave feeling extremely confident in your intuitive abilities. And I know this can be hard sometimes because, there's a lot of ways that your intuition can get mixed up with your anxiety, with your fear response. A lot of ways where maybe we're getting the constructive criticism of others coming our way, we're comparing ourselves to others, and we're confusing it with our intuition. So I wanted to be super, super clear and give you guys tools where you're gonna know 100%, this is my intuition speaking to me. This is spirit coming through in this moment, and I fully trust it and will jump on board with whatever message is coming through. I also want to help you feel confident owning your intuitive abilities, even when your emotional state is not in the best place. I think a lot of the times we get down on ourselves when, maybe we're not in the highest vibration. We're experiencing these lower density emotions of like fear and anger and sadness and resentment and, all these things that we've termed as like icky. And we think because we're in that state, we are disconnected from source. And I really aim in this masterclass to show you that that's not the case. These are actually gateways to go even deeper in your relationship with source and to channel some of your most potent work yet. And lastly, I want to give you some tools, some strategies to help you really bring this information into your day-to-day life, to create space in your life for the divine to take over, to speak through you, to have more ease and flow and trust. Because a life of surrender, a life where you know that God is guiding every single step you take, that's true peace. That's true fulfillment. That's true abundance. We like to think that it's the material stuff that are going to give us those feelings inside, but really it's that connection with our inner knowing. It's in that connection with that thing that's greater than us, but so intimately connected to us, that gives us those feelings that we are constantly seeking from external sources. And finally, oh my gosh, can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, but I'm also going to be inviting you into my first ever paid program. It's called the Spiritual Reboot Camp. I have been teasing it on my socials for like the last few weeks, and you're going to get the first access to it, everyone who's showing up live today, because you guys are obviously, you know, you're my people. Oh my God, Mariela, I'm so happy to see you here, man. I miss you so much. Mariela's my friend that I met while I was traveling in Guatemala. And I mean, I have Andy here. He's also a friend from Guatemala. Just so many beautiful people. I'm like so excited right now and happy that you're the first people that I get to share, you know, the first offerings that I'm doing, because they really came from my heart. They came from my own personal experience, and I just feel like it's been such a long time coming. So have the support. It means everything to me. With that being said, let's jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen. This isn't going to be, there's not really going to be a lot of PowerPoints going on here in this masterclass, but there is one visual that I wanted to share because I feel like it's so core to the work that I do here on the Mind Palace. And it's really potent, especially when you're understanding your own intuition. Hold on, give me a moment. A tab. Here we go. All right. So let me know, just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys can see this. Give me a thumbs up. I'm like, yeah, just give me a thumbs up on the screen, not in the chat. Okay, cool. So this is something that I've literally been dreaming about teaching for, I think, over a year now. It's the way that I've really started to understand the way that our mind works and operates. And I think if you can understand your mind, you have basically figured out the cheat code to life. And the reason why there's dotted lines in this visual is because there really is, I don't want you to think of your mind as like this compartmentalized thing. First of all, it's not a thing. Let's not confuse the mind with the brain. The brain is the physical receiver. It's kind of like, if you're going to think of it in terms of an analogy, it's the radio, right? It's a physical thing we can look at, we can touch and study. But the mind is non-physical. The mind is pure awareness, pure energy, pure consciousness. It's like the radio waves that are existing, right? There's radio waves all around us right now. That's what's allowing us to actually have this transmission happening via video call. You can hear me, you can see me. Where's the data being sent? It's being sent through radio waves, right? We can't see it, but it doesn't make it any less real. That is really your mind. And your mind is not separate, right? It is everywhere at once. And so if your radio is the brain, right, it's picking up on these messages. Your mind is the radio waves. Your thoughts are like the channel that you choose to tune to. And I really think there's two main channels that we can tune into, the ego or the spirit. So your ego mind, this is the mind that is steeped in the material world, right? It's the mind that has learned behavior from your past. It's a mind that thinks in black and white. It's your survival mind. Now this mind, it's always in conflict, right? It will, if you actually had like a scripted out version, if you could get like a transcript of everything that goes on in your ego mind and read it, you would see just how deluded you are. And we all are. We all have this constant conflict happening inside our minds, and we don't really even realize it. But the spiritual mind, this is the mind that's connected to the immaterial world. It's connected to infinite potential and divine wisdom, and that exists beyond time and space, right? So it's not tied to the past. It understands that even though the past might have had a certain result, the future can be anything you want it to be. And in fact, there is infinite potential, infinite, projections of the future. And at any moment in the present, really the spiritual mind is connected to the present now, right? And the present now can exist, like we can have, when you get to the future, where are you going to be? You're going to be in the present. You're going to call it the now. It's connected to that. It's connected to that timeline. And as you shift through timelines, you actually shift the past projection as well. right? It's beyond time and space. And this mind is completely at peace, right? There is no conflict happening here. Now on the vertical axis, we have the conscious and the subconscious, right? So conscious is anything that you are conscious of. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions that you are consciously taking. Versus the subconscious is that which you are not conscious of, okay? So these are the belief systems that then, provoke those thoughts and those feelings and those actions. Now, actions are an interesting one because they can be conscious or subconscious. And a lot of our actions really are subconscious, right? Right now, you're not thinking about the fact that you have to breathe. You're not thinking about the fact that you have to digest your food. It's just happening independent of your conscious thought. So when I really break it down like this, I can understand, where is this message? Where is this thought coming from? What quadrant of my mind am I tuned into right now? And I think when you're able to identify which quadrant of your mind a thought or a feeling is coming from, you're so much more empowered in whether you choose to act on that thought or feeling. Right? So when it's conscious and it's coming from your ego, it's your survival mind. And this is not a bad or good thing. We need every single part of our minds. And I actually believe that they all work together in order for us to create our most potent work. Because you can have a really, really highly powered spiritual download come through, but then when you compare it with a real life experience, something that has actually happened in your past, right? Tuning into that ego mind, that material world mind, that's what is going to be the most potent. And that's when somebody else is going to be able to really grasp it and bring it into their material world. So none of these are bad or good. They all need to work together, and we need to be able to understand it so we can use it constructively instead of destructively, right? Now, when you're operating in the ego mind and it's subconscious, this is your autonomic nervous system, right? The part of you that controls the breathing, controls digestion, controls your heart rate. It's also your habitual mind. So the things that you do naturally without even thinking about it. You know, how maybe when you wake up in the morning, first thing you do is grab for your phone. You don't think about it. It's just a natural response because it's something you've done over and over and over again. It's also where your defense mechanisms are. You know, when there's something that just takes over you and you don't quite know what it is, but you can't stop it, it's a defense mechanism, right? Versus our spiritual mind. So if it's spiritual mind and it's conscious, we call that your intuition, right? You are now conscious of a thought or a feeling, and it's coming from that part of you that is connected to divine intelligence, divine potential. It's connected to the past, it's connected to the future, it's connected to other people, right? All of our minds are kind of swimming in this sea of energy, and we can start to pick up on the thoughts, the feelings, the actions of other people, right? This is your intuitive mind. Now, if your spiritual mind and your subconscious mind in that quadrant, this is the field of infinite intelligence. It's what we call God, source, universe, oneness. So think about that for a moment. There is actually, and I don't like using the word part, but it's the best way I can describe it with my limited, human experience right now. There's a part of you that literally is God. It is that God self within you, that source within you. And you have access to that all the time. There is a constant stream of wisdom coming to and through you. And when you can bring that unconscious part of you into the conscious, that is what we call channeling. And that is really what the gist of this masterclass is about. It's about bringing that unconscious divine wisdom, that unconscious God self into the conscious so that we can speak it forward in words, we can write it out. You can decide what way you want to channel that, but that's essentially what we're doing. So I hope this gives you a little bit more clarity around the different quadrants of your mind, the different stations you can kind of choose, you can tune your consciousness to. And we're going to be referring back to this a few times throughout, the masterclass, just so we can pinpoint, okay, this is how I know when it's coming from my ego mind. This is how I know when it's coming from my spiritual mind, and so on and so forth. All right, cool. How are we doing, guys? Good. Awesome. So yeah, I used to think I was not an intuitive person. I was an engineering student. I had always been super academic. I always, was very logical, very in my masculine, very rational person. And I somehow was always surrounded by super intuitive people. My sister, she's here on this call. She's always been super intuitive, super connected to her feelings, and, to that part of her that just knows without knowing that she knows. Same with my best friend. My best friend is super intuitive, and she's always just had this trust in her intuition that I could not understand. I used to just think, well, that's them, and this is me. That it's just the way that we are. I have my gifts, they have their gifts. But as time went on, my friend would always tell me, no, this is something you can cultivate. This is something you can develop. It's a muscle you have to practice. And I was like, yeah, whatever. When I actually started to take it seriously there was one night, believe it or not, we used to go to the club pretty often. That is in another life of mine. And you know what? Sometimes you might still catch me in the club, definitely not as regularly, but I don't operate in that black and white thinking anymore, because that's an egoic way of thinking, right? So we stay open to all of these things without judgment, but that used to be something I did a lot more often back in for a second year of university. And there was one Wednesday night, I don't even think there was a Drake concert happening, honestly. But my friend was just like, I think we need to go to this club tonight. And it was a Wednesday. And I was like, girl, are you crazy? I have an exam on Friday. I can't be going to the club on a Wednesday night. And it wasn't even a club that we went to often. It was super random club that we really never went to. And she's like, I just have this feeling, I just feel like we have to go. I'm like, okay, whatever. We get there, and immediately we notice that there's some weird hype going on. There's the employees are kind of whispering to each other, and word gets around the club, and everyone's like, apparently Drake is coming to this club tonight. She's like, see, I knew that we had to come tonight. Anyway, Drake ends up showing up at the club, and he's literally within 10, less than 10 feet from us. It was cool, but I also realized that, Drake actually kind of sucks in person. So that's a side note. But it was just okay, so obviously, and at the time I really loved Drake. Drake was probably my favorite artist. So, and we would listen to Drake all the time. He was who we would listen to getting ready, getting pumped up. So for us to have actually found ourselves in the same room as him, literally right next to him, was pretty crazy. And that was totally based on her intuitive nudge that we just had to go to this random club on Wednesday night. So when that happened, I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this whole intuition thing. Maybe I should start taking it more seriously. And so I asked her, what do I do? How do you recommend that I start to cultivate this skill or use this muscle? And the first thing she told me was to start to say to myself, intuition, come forward. Intuition, come forward. You're actually consciously calling that intuition forward, right? And by setting this intention, you are moving from your ego mind to your spiritual mind, right? And you're actually using your conscious mind to invoke the subconscious, to bring it forward. So I started saying this to myself. I started saying, okay, intuition, come forward, intuition, come forward, intuition, come forward. And I started to notice that when I would go to make decisions, I would actually try to consult my intuition before doing the rational, logical thing. That's only because I started setting the intention. I started saying to myself, I started actually directing myself with what I wanted to happen, right? And then came all these thoughts about, okay, but how do I actually know this is my intuition talking to me? Something that my friend had taught me to do was to tune into my body. We always see, intuition, people say is a gut feeling, right? But anxiety can really exist in the body as well. So how can you tell the difference between a gut feeling and anxiety, right? Anxiety is going to be that thing coming from the ego mind versus the intuition, which is coming from the spiritual mind. And one way that I really learned how to tell what is fear, what is intuition, is to start tuning into an energy center that's right beneath the belly button. So see if you can feel this. See if you can feel this when I'm going to direct you through a little practice here. So close your eyes. And there's an energy center called your lower dantian. It's just underneath your belly button. See if you can tune into that feeling there. Now you're going to say to yourself, my name is, and state your name. And say truth, 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 truth over. See if you can sense that energy center slightly rising. It feels like it's going up kind of into your breastbone. If you can't feel it right away, that's totally okay. It is something that we need to practice over time and get really used to feeling those subtle sensations within the body, right? You can try it again. And this time say, my name is Sophia. Truth, 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 truth. And see if you can sense that energy center slowly sinking down closer to your pelvic bone. Emma, mine felt like it goes down to my root when it's true. That's interesting. I have never experienced that before, but maybe play with it a little bit more. Play with it a little bit more and see how does the energy shift in my gut when something's true versus something's false. That way, that's something you can always go to identify whether this is a true yes for you or a true no for you. There's a lot of different ways you can do this with your energy. It's one way that I started cultivating my intuition, but really as I started to understand the way my mind worked, that's when I started to be able to be like dead clear on whether this was fear or intuition. So something to really look out for is question the thought that comes through. So let's say you're at a crossroads and you're like, okay, what way should I go? You tune in and instantly you hear left. Maybe you'll ask, why should I go left? Start to question this answer. Why should I go left? If you notice that the voice in your head is explaining itself, it's rationalizing why you should go left. Well, it's a shorter path. It's the way you always go. You might run into this person on the way, whatever it might be. That is a clear sign that is not your intuition. Your intuition will not argue with itself. It will not explain itself, right? That is the ego mind. The ego mind that is constantly at war with itself, constantly in conflict, right? If you have this question and you're like, it's like telling you all the reasons why you should and also why you shouldn't, and maybe why the other way is better, that is definitely not your intuition. Your intuition, when you ask it a question, when you inquire about why, this is what it's going to sound like. Okay, what way should I go? Left. Why should I go left? Left. Okay, but why should I go left? Left. That's how the intuition is going to sound. It's not going to explain itself. It's going to be so clear. You're not going to know why. You're just going to know that that's the way you got to go. It's not going to give you this long-winded answer. It's going to be very, very, very concise. And this is a way that I've been able to really, really identify whether something is my intuition or just the voice of my ego, the voice of my fear and my anxiety. Another thing to look out for is black and white thinking versus looking for a third option. I'm going to give an example of this because I think it's going to make it a lot more clear. So just this past week, I was at my mom's house on the weekend and my dad was heading out. And my cat, who is a lovely little outdoor crazy wild thing, was roaming around and not coming back. And my dad wasn't going to be home till like 11, 12 o'clock. And usually I like her being home when it gets dark because there's coyotes in my neighborhood. So I worry about her. I don't want her to get eaten. I've heard way too many stories from neighbors about, their cats leaving one day and never coming back. And so I had this dilemma. Do I just trust that everything's going to be okay? And, trust that when my dad gets home, hopefully my cat will be back and she's going to be okay. Or do I go check on her myself? Do I go out of my way to go to my mom's house, leave my mom's house, go to my dad's house, stay, and I didn't even have a house key too. So I would have had to just sit outside, wait for my cat to come back, and then maybe take her with me back to my mom's house. right? And wait until I could go back to my dad's house the next day with the key and everything. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, what do I do? You know, I can either do this or I can do this. There's only these two answers. Tune into my intuition. Let me take a beat. Let me slow down. Come back to myself. And suddenly the third option pops into my mind. I can call my cousin. She's way closer to my dad's house. Maybe she'll be able to go and check on my cat. And my dad is literally at her house, so my dad can give her the keys. She can go inside the house, let my cat in, you know, whereas I would have to go all the way to my aunt's house, all the way to my dad's house if I wanted to get the keys. It was just going to be super complicated, right? But I realized the ego mind was putting me in that, you know, black and white thinking where you think, okay, one of them is going to be the ego answer, one of them is going to be the intuitive answer, right? Which one is which? Usually it's neither. Usually both of these are just the ego creating conflict, creating, you know, being at war with itself. And when you look for that third option, that's how you know that that is your intuition speaking to you. And usually it will come through when you get super, super, super quiet with yourself and you let go of both of those answers, right? So last but not least, a really great way to tell if something is your ego or your intuition is to tune into the feeling that it's bringing you. And the ego is always going to come with that bit of anxiety, and the intuition is always going to be calm. It's going to give you a sense of calmness, even if it's something that you don't want to hear. So, to give you an example of this from my own personal life, I'm going to tell you about how my intuition confirmed to me that my ex-boyfriend had cheated on me. Not a fun story, but honestly, such a great example of this principle. So through the grapevine, my best friend had warned me that, you know, someone had said something, not that he had cheated, just something was a little bit fishy in the air. So I was scrolling through my Instagram feed and I saw this post that said, if you see a dragonfly, it means that someone is hiding something from you. And I was like, okay, interesting. I'm going to ask for a dragonfly. So I quietly just said to myself, like, intuition, if, you know, something's being hidden from me, something that I should know about, then show me a dragonfly. And I let it go. We're going to talk about asking and receiving signs next, because like I said, the mind is not confined to you. The mind is everything and everywhere. So starting to see the external world as an extension of your mind allows for your intuitive impulses and messages to come through so many different sources. It can come from within, but they can also be inspired from things that are around you, right? And just having that, being able to distinguish which one is your intuition and which one is your ego being reflected back to you, right? Because the outer world really is a reflection of everything happening internally. So anyway, go to work the next day, and I worked on an outside pool bar and never saw dragonflies there, or at least I never noticed dragonflies there before. But I remember I was cleaning up a table and this small little dragonfly zoomed right past my face. And I just felt it. I felt it. I stopped in my gut and I just knew. I knew something was being hidden from me and I had a pretty good idea what it was. But I wasn't anxious about it. It was just like this calm feeling like, okay, confirmed. All right. And that was really interesting to me because I thought I would be more stressed about it, but it was almost like just having that inner knowing brought me a lot of peace, brought me a lot of clarity. Usually it's the unknowing that brings us stress and brings us anxiety. But when we are confirmed in something, we're validated in something, even if it's something we don't necessarily want to hear, that's your intuition speaking to you. It's always going to bring you a sense of calmness, right? Like going back to when I was thinking about my cat, honestly, both options were bringing me stress. The option of having to go out of my way and jump through all these crazy hoops to make sure she was okay was bringing me stress. The option of just, trusting that she was going to be okay and that no coyotes were going to eat her was also bringing me stress, right? Even though I could have said, oh, well, that's the more trusting option. That's the more surrendered option, right? On the logical, rational level, it seems like that's the clear answer. It seems like that's the spiritual answer, right? But the feeling attached to it was anxiety, right? So that's how I knew that that was not my intuition. Let me know in the chat how you guys are doing right now. Is all this clicking? Is it making sense? Is it like applicable information? Yes, I love this. Okay. Yeah, great. Hell yeah. Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right, so next I want to talk about asking and receiving signs, because this is a really amazing way that our intuition can speak to us. So I think a lot of people know, okay, show me this sign if I meant to do this, or show me that whatever. But how do we know if this is actually spirit, this is actually source, this is actually God coming through? I think that there's a really simple process that we can follow if we want to be sure. First is to be very clear about the sign that you want. If you're going to choose something that maybe you see regularly in your environment, give it a specific color, give it a specific feature, something that you know for sure is going to be your sign. Don't just say like an apple when you know like you have apples in your fridge, or like a maple leaf when you know you walk by the same maple leaf tree every single day. Maybe say like a blue maple leaf. Something crazy like that. Something where you're going to be so certain that if it comes, that is your sign. Next is to, once you've asked for this sign, once you've said clearly, and I also like doing signs where it's like, show me this if it's a yes, show me this if it's a no. You might say like, show me a blue dragonfly if it's a yes, show me a red dragonfly if it's a no. That can also help it become very, very, very clear. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to completely let go of what you've asked for. You're going to pretend like, it never even happened. And you're just going to trust that if that sign's meant to come to you, it's going to come to you in a timely manner. That's another thing in being clear, is you can put a time frame on it. You can say, show me the sign within 24 hours. Show me the sign by the end of the week, right? But after you've set this time, after you've been really clear about it, let it go. Like, actually trust that if it's going to come through, it's going to come through. And if it doesn't, then that is for the best. Okay? Just set the intention that whatever that is in your highest interest is going to take place. You're going to get the guidance you need to lead to the highest possible outcome. Because here's the thing, when the sign actually comes, you're going to know that it's your sign because it comes in the most unexpected way. That's how you know it's God. That's how you know it's source, it's universe. If it comes in the most unexpected, crazy way, you're going to have no doubts that that is the way that you're meant to go. That's the sign, like confirming this is the way for you. And this is a great story that I always think back to when asking and receiving signs. So last summer, I knew that I wanted to go and travel, but I was still really on the fence about where do I go? When do I go? I wasn't fully committed to the decision to go and travel. And I saw that my friends were hosting a yoga teacher training. I thought, okay, that's really awesome. It's happening in Costa Rica. I would love to go to Costa Rica. I think that, I would love to do a yoga teacher training, but I'm not really sure if that's the right thing for me. I mean, I can go and travel without that. I don't know if that's really the path. So I asked for a sign. I said, if I am meant to go and do this yoga teacher training, mind you, it was also a big investment of money as well. So that's something I really wanted to be sure about. There was a lot of anxiety about the investment, about all the details around it. So I asked for the sign. I said, if I'm meant to go, and I had 24 hours before the price was going to rise. So I was like, if I'm meant to go, show me a green hummingbird. And I need it within 24 hours. Cool, great, let it go. I was like, whatever's meant to happen is going to happen. If it's meant for me, I'll see it. If it's not, I won't. And, I was thinking like, okay, I could see a green hummingbird. Like I could be like scrolling through my Instagram feed and see one. Probably that's how it's, or maybe I'll be watching like a documentary or something and it will show up. And that's the thing is like when your mind is predicting how it's going to happen, it hopefully it doesn't happen through that because that's going to leave you doubtful about, okay, did I actually just like manifest this or is this actually the universe speaking to me? So I let it go completely. I'm like, whatever, we'll see what happens. The next day, I have a friend over and I'm giving her a tour of my house that I've lived in since I was a child. Okay. I thought I knew every square inch of this house. And I'm taking her upstairs on a tour of my dad's office. I open the door to the office, as I've done literally hundreds of thousands of times, and something at the top shelf, right when I open the door, caught my eye. And I look up and instinctively reach for it, take it down, and it's this little green hummingbird. And it was a little wooden green hummingbird. And I was like frozen in my, like frozen because I was like, what is going on? This is literally my sign, the exact sign that I asked for. It came in the most unexpected way. I did not think I was going to find a little wooden green hummingbird in my home of all places. And so instantly recognized it as my sign. I had that feeling of like, wait, this is important. And I decided to jump in and book the yoga teacher training. Best decision I ever made. From there. Like, honestly, the whole travel experience just unfolded so naturally. I traveled for 6.5 months. It was amazing. I grew so much as a person. I could not have done my yoga teacher training with any better people. Like, it was such a great choice to go with that. And I'm so happy that I asked for that sign and that I followed it when I received it. So life is always talking to us, right? There's this constant feedback loop happening. And when we start to get good at noticing the patterns, that's when we can recognize, this is a message from spirit. You're always going to see something as a little bit sparkly when it's spirit talking to you. That's how I like to think of it, is like it's sparkly. Like it's not physically sparkly. Maybe it doesn't look any different than anything else. It doesn't look out of the ordinary. But when you look at it, something's just going to tell you that's important. I need to pay attention to that. This happens to me all the time with books. I will just be, I have tons of books just scattered around my house. And I'll just be walking around and then suddenly like a book just jumps out at me. You know when people say like something just jumps out at them? It's because that is spirit talking to you. That is your gut feeling. That is that God self within you saying, look at that. That's a God self from the subconscious coming into the conscious and saying, that's important. You don't know why, but you just know that it is. Trust that, right? Allow yourself to go there in the moment that that call happens, because odds are there's going to be something in that book that you need to hear that day, something that you need to internalize to then share with the world, right? And that's exactly what happened with that hummingbird. I didn't even see the full hummingbird. There was just something that caught my eye at the top corner of the room, at the top corner of the shelf. And I knew that I had to reach for it. Another time this happened to me. Oh, this was such a crazy story. So this was one of the first weeks that I was traveling, and I was in Mexico. And I had just found out that, oh my God, I'm drawing so many stories from my like past relationship, but that's honestly where so much spiritual growth happened for me. But I just found out that my ex had started seeing someone new. And naturally, when you find that out, all the emotions just surface all over again. And I was really sad. I was honestly torn up. Things I thought I had healed were just coming up all over again. I was triggered. And I remember going into the ocean one morning and literally just bawling my eyes out and like praying and saying, God, like, please take this pain from me. Like, I'm ready to be free of this. Like, I am ready to find my person. Please. Like, and I just cried and cried and cried and released so, so much into the ocean. And I stood up to walk out. And as I was walking out, something just caught my attention at the bottom of the ocean. Instinctively, I reach in and pull out this shell that's like open, and it looks like angel wings. And it was like, I just knew that my message had been received and that I was being taken care of and I was being protected. here we are. I don't even know. This is like 8 months later now, and I'm in the most peaceful relationship I've ever been in. It's long distance. I haven't seen him in 3 months, but I feel like I'm growing more in love with him every day. It's been such a beautiful experience, and like my heart is healing in so many ways. But God speaks to us. Spirit speaks to us when we are willing to speak to it. You know, are you cultivating your relationship with God? Are you trusting Source? Are you giving your troubles to it, to Him, to her, however you best relate to this intangible, you know, source of creation? Channeling isn't just something that you do when you feel good. It's not just something that you do in one area of your life. It's a way of life. It's deciding that you're going to consciously and intentionally build a relationship with the divine and trust it and create room for it in your life, to surrender to it. You know, and that's really what I wanted to get into next is how do we channel, you know, when we're not feeling our best, when we're kind of feeling like crap. You know, I think we have this resistance to channeling. We feel like we're somehow disconnected from the world, we're disconnected to other people, disconnected from ourselves, to our purpose, when we aren't in a positive state. But it's like it couldn't be further from the truth. That idea of disconnection is just an illusion, right? And so I want to encourage you to embrace all emotional states with grace. Because I really think that when we allow ourselves, okay, yes, you've heard feel your feelings. Yes, feel your feelings. Yes, allow yourself to process whatever you're going through when it comes up. But what if you actually allow that to be perfect as it was? Like, what if you allowed that to take you deeper into your relationship with God? I'm going to share a poem with you guys, a poem that really was channeled straight through me at a time where I was experiencing a lot of emotional pain and heartbreak. And I think it's some of my best work. And it's nothing that I could have written from my conscious mind. It's something that really came when I was in those depths of despair. And I was asking God for help. I was asking God to show me the way. I was saying, please help me, guide me through this. Like, I'm here. I'm surrendering to you completely. So here you go. This is a poem, and it really encapsulates the message of what I'm trying to share. It says, nothing brings you back to God like sorrow. I feel the whips of loss strike my back, and in that moment, I have no choice but to cry out to the unseen. If you're there, help me, hold me, ease my pain. When I have nothing left to cling to, I cling to faith itself, because I'd rather believe that there's something looking out for me than believe that I'm suffering alone. After all, you can't spell loneliness without oneness, and it's when the dark swallows you whole that you find out just how whole you truly are. Can an endless void ever be divided? Can no thing have limits? Maybe it's my curiosity in seeing whether my prayers will be answered that keeps me holding on, or maybe, just maybe, it's my knowing that they were answered the moment I asked. Real faith only exists when it has no reason to. So embrace your hopelessness, for it is the doorway to the kingdom of heaven, and your cry to be free is the knock. I truly believe, guys, that God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Each and every one of us have these really deep experiences that we go through because we are meant to use those to help the world. We're meant to channel those messages through that experience. Right? And if we can allow the trigger to be the place where, you know, the light enters, to be the place where the message actually comes through, to let ourselves go into that depth, all the while knowing that it's going to provide some value to someone out there once it's, you know, like, imagine this. How are you ever going to walk someone through something that you haven't walked yourself through? And I believe that your message, your channel is most potent when you're walking yourself alongside others, because that's when you can really emote with them. You can feel what they're feeling. And a lot of the times we think, I can't help anyone when I'm in this state. But here's the thing, it's so much easier for us to give the advice to someone else than maybe to take it ourselves. And when you hear it from somebody else, it's easier to take than if you were to give it to yourself. So allowing yourself to be that channel, even if you're in the depths of something really hard, that is going to be super healing for someone else. And in seeing the healing in them, that's when you receive the healing yourself. It is in teaching that we learn. So I want you to reflect on the ways that you're making yourself unworthy of being this channel. You know, where are you holding shame in your life? And how can you start to look at it instead with genuine curiosity? This is another way to really go deeper into our wounds. It's like, let's say, for example, you know that you're holding a lot of resentment towards someone. You actually want revenge. You're feeling the emotion of revenge. And you're like, this is the least spiritual thing ever. This is so ego, so bad. I can't teach anyone anything right now. I can't be a channel right now. My intuition is shot right now. I'm just in this low frequency emotion. But let's go deeper there. Let's reflect on this emotion of revenge. Why would you want to perpetuate the pain that you feel on someone else? Maybe because you want to feel understood. The only way that you're going to be able to, that person will be able to understand you and connect with you is if they can feel the pain that you're feeling. So really, this urgency for revenge is just a cry for connection. And that is a beautiful and holy thing. You see how we went right through the trigger? We didn't stop at revenge and be like, oh, I'm so horrible for feeling this. Let me back up and try another coping mechanism so that I can go around it. No, it's like, there's this call for revenge. But why? What is this showing me about myself? Why would I really want to perpetuate that pain on someone else? No, it's because I want connection. You know, I even had, something that I consider in myself to be like non-spiritual, and this is a super taboo topic, and I'm so sorry if anyone in my family is watching this, but the idea of like self-pleasure, and masturbation, my sexuality, it's something I've always held a lot of shame around. But I really started to open myself up and question that and realize, why am I holding shame around this? What am I fundamentally wanting when I'm doing this action? When I'm having these cravings and these urges? Really what I want to experience is pleasure. I want to release energy. I want to relax. That's not a bad thing. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting more pleasure and bliss and ease and, more of this relaxed energy in my life. It's actually a beautiful and holy thing. Right? And through that, now I can release shame around it. Now I've actually taken myself from this energy of shame to a more heightened energy of acceptance. And from that acceptance, now I can start to channel, because I can look at this experience from a more objective point of view, and I can use it as a way to help others through their own triggers. Right? So really, I think that when you're in those low frequency states, that is one of the best opportunities you have to channel. That's when your most potent work is going to actually come through. That's been my experience anyways. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I have a few notes here. I'm just trying to stay on track with everything, because there's so much here. I could go on and on and on. Hence why I've created a whole 6-week program that we really get to dive into all of these topics here. But really, you are perfect exactly as you are. There is that God self within you. And whenever you feel like you are disconnected, or you are unworthy, or you don't have valuable things to share, you are denying that God self within you. You're not recognizing the worthiness that actually exists inside of you, right? The innate worthiness. You're not recognizing the creator who created you, the perfect creator who created you. The creator can never be separated from the creation, right? So let's start to recognize, like, okay, actually, I am already perfection. And it's just my own thoughts about what perfection is and isn't that's keeping me from experiencing that. And it's like, what if we can embrace all those things that we deem as like not spiritual enough about ourselves? And we can actually use them to understand ourselves better and to become more whole, more spiritual. I really think like spirituality is wholeness. So being able to look at all these different parts of ourselves and love them equally and embrace them equally, that's when your magic's going to come. That's when the real messages, the deep wisdom is going to come through. All right, Chad is blowing up. I was like, get it. Once you see that it is connection to experience you crave and not revenge, how do you go forward? I think first and foremost, self-forgiveness, forgiving yourself for, you know, for wanting to maybe perpetuate that pain, and understanding that, okay, if connection is really what I'm looking for, how can I go about it in a different way? How can I still get that need met? Maybe instead of perpetuating the pain that I feel onto someone else, it's sitting down and having an honest conversation with them. Maybe it's not even having it with them. Maybe it's having it with a friend who can see you and hold that space for you, and you know, you can fully express how you've been feeling, and that person can then show you empathy and be like, I get it, I understand you because I went through this. You know, so it's like recognizing that maybe what you're really wanting, you're going about it in not a very helpful way or, you know, effective way, but there's other ways to have your needs met that are not destructive for anyone else in the process. That's a really great question, Seba. Thank you. Sophia, you got me tearing over here. I love you, Seb. But yeah, releasing these stories that we have created around our own unworthiness, this is a really, really, really big component that we're going to be going into in the Spiritual Reboot Camp. Something I'm really excited about because it's something that I've totally been walking myself through, and recognizing that there's like shame is an egoic device that keeps us stuck in whatever we're feeling shamed about. That's all it is. Shame serves no purpose anywhere. Guilt serves no purpose. So when we're able to actually go through that, you know, shame loves company. Exactly. It's just something that keeps you stuck in the cycle. When we're actually able to alchemize that and recognize the gift that exists there, recognize what, you know, transition, use the shame to go through the ego mind and straight to the spiritual mind. I think that's honestly where we're all gonna really find like our gift, our purpose, and feel so connected to the mission that we're here for on this earth. And if you're on this call, then I know you're someone who really feels like, I'm here on a mission. Like, I didn't just show up for the sake of it. Like, I'm here to do something big. And that's why I know that that's the kind of people that I'm calling in, and that's every single one of you here. And so like, why, like, let's just support each other and amp each other up. I am the moment, Moya says. Yes, you are the moment. We're all here for such a divine purpose, right? The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is really creating the space for these messages to come through in your day-to-day life. It's like, okay, we've talked about all the things now. Like, how do I actually start to embody this in my daily life? And I want you to consider, are you honoring the messages when they are coming through and creating an intentional space to receive them? One way you might do this is knowing your peak times. Your peak times may be for creativity. Your peak times where, you know, at this time, I usually get some pretty cool thoughts coming through. I usually get some pretty cool downloads. I usually feel like a burst of energy or inspiration. I usually feel like I really want to share something with someone at this time. So really allow yourself to monitor your energy levels throughout the day. Take a few days and just see if you can notice some patterns here. For me, I notice first thing in the morning, I'm a little groggy. So I maybe take some time to just be a little internal, be a little hermit. Then around 11 a.m., I'm like ready to like get on my story and start sharing. I have like some crazy thought come to me and I'm like, whoa, I need to run with this. You know, that's when I really have my peak time of creativity, and when I notice that we're most likely to channel at that time. Right. And then around 2 o'clock, like, I'm just a zombie. Don't talk to me at that time. And then a little later on, around 4 or 5, that's when I start to want to be a little bit more social, but I'm maybe not in that super creative energy. So it's really by giving myself the space to monitor this behavior as I go through my day that allowed me to notice the patterns. And so then I know, okay, so at 11 o'clock, I'm going to designate that time to like posting on Instagram. That's my outlet for creativity right now. It can change from time to time. Right now, that's my outlet for channeled messages. Maybe I'm just going to write something on my computer or type it in my notes, right? Can we still receive channel messages that we've previously missed and ignored? I think that's a really good question and something I want to touch on. I think timing is really important when it comes to channel. It's like, what's feeling really alive for you right now? But the good thing to know is that there's never going to be an end. It's never going to run out, okay? It's a flow, it's a river. It's just this stream of endless wisdom that's constantly coming through. And I think just the way that people say that what's meant for you can't miss you, the messages that are meant to come through you are not going to miss you either. It's just going to get louder and louder and louder and louder and louder until you either integrate it into your own life or you share it because you're being called to share it. So I don't think there's really anything as like missing messages. I think there is like a prime time when they're like at their energetic peak. But I think that if it's really meant for you to acknowledge, then it's going to just keep getting louder and louder and louder. You won't miss it. But that being said, like there isn't like a limit on how much. It's just you have to trust that it's gonna keep coming. It's going to keep coming. And I think that's something I was stuck on for a while as well, was like, oh, I want to like save this really powerful message because like, what if no more comes? It's like really in that lack energy. I was like, what if I can just release it and know that there's always more on the way? Probably something more powerful. Probably something, you know, that's been even more integrated because now I have more life experience. Just allowing it to be this endless flow of river without trying to grasp it or hold on to it or feel like I have to take advantage of this message and like make it the best ever and everyone has to hear it or else it's going to be a failure. Like, no, just abundance. It's always, always, always coming through, right? Another thing to really look out for is like, where are you maybe less, I don't want to ever call a habit like destructive because every habit has a purpose. The reason that you've built it as a habit is because it's serving you in some way. And this is something we're really going to go into in the Spiritual Bootcamp as well, as like a habit audit. Looking at our habits objectively, understand the reason why we've created the habit, and then really asking ourselves, is this habit I want to continue to, you know, work through, or is it maybe a habit that I would like to replace with another more constructive habit? Right? Like, for example, if you notice that every time you start to have an energy drain, your initial thing is like, go take a nap. So now you find yourself taking naps really often. But maybe that's not the best way to manage the energetic exhaustion. Maybe a meditation practice or a breath work practice would be better. Another thing to consider, like maybe when you start to feel stagnancy in your work or anxiety, you immediately pick up your phone and start scrolling. It's like, okay, you've developed this habit because it's serving you. It's alleviating that anxiety. It's alleviating that tension. But there might be better practices that could also help you. Maybe you want to go and stretch. Maybe you want to go and dance to some music. But being able to recognize, okay, why have I developed this habit? How is it serving me? Because it is serving you, right? Kind of letting go of that shame around it altogether, because you wouldn't have it if it wasn't giving you something. And then understanding, okay, how can I get the same result with a different habit? This, I think, is also going to allow you to really open the floodgates to your channel. And because, you know, then instead of taking a nap, maybe you're doing a 10-minute meditation, and from that meditation, like a whole bunch of downloads come through, right? Or maybe you notice that, okay, I'm going to start journaling every day to alleviate some of the anxiety instead of scrolling on my phone. From that journal exercise, you naturally start channeling a bunch of really amazing breakthroughs. Or you start seeing yourself in a whole new way, and you're like, whoa, like, this is totally not coming from me. This is definitely coming from like God, source, universe. But it's only because you've changed that habit. Right? So that's going to be a really big theme in the Spiritual Bootcamp, but something for you to start thinking about right now. Next is like when you feel the download, And like, tell me if you guys can relate to this. When I feel a download coming, it's kind of like, I'll get like one powerful thought and I'll be like, huh, interesting. Never thought of it that way. And then I can choose whether I stop, drop, and roll. This is what I like to say, literally stop, find a space, drop into that, my body, drop into whatever's coming through and roll with it. Like start to question it, start to like engage with it, start to play with it, start to have like this dialogue, maybe start to write, right? And see what else follows. Literally stopping, dropping, rolling, or do I continue on with whatever I thought I had to be doing at that time? Maybe I'm in, like, I could literally, this happened to me literally today, guys. I just turned on the stove. I was about to make myself some lunch. And all of a sudden, I just like had this like really powerful download come through. And I literally ran to my phone, started recording, and then I realized I freaking left the stove on. So I had to go back, turn the stove off, come back, and like record myself talking. That's sometimes how I choose to, you know, express whatever's coming through. Right? So, but I could have just been like, oh, no. I'll wait for later. I'll wait till after I'm done my lunch, and then I'll come back to this. And what I've noticed is that when I do that, it's like, you know, what we were talking about a little bit earlier with Moya's question, the download kind of loses its potency. Like the peak energy is kind of lost. And you can still channel it, but it's not going to be as energized, as powerful as it was in the moment that it came through. So I challenge you, next time you have this feeling where you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but like this sounds important to me, stop, drop, and roll with it. Okay, I really want to see what comes through from that practice. And the last thing you can do is kind of like set a time for your message or channel to come through. That's kind of what I did with this workshop, this masterclass. Like I wrote all these notes down earlier today, but I had been prepping myself, priming myself subconscious for the last few days, saying, okay, like Wednesday at this time, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna channel all my notes. Right. So for the days prior, I had already been telling myself, this is the time, this is literally the space that I am creating for this message to come through. And then it's really about just trusting that when that time rolls around, the message is going to come through. But when you've been instructing yourself over and over and over again, it's kind of like saying to yourself, like, okay, every morning at 11 a.m., I'm going to sit down and I'm going to channel this Instagram post or the story, whatever. Or I'm going to work on my book. By intentionally setting that time, you're giving yourself a much higher likelihood of something actually coming through. And maybe it doesn't, you know, maybe it doesn't, and that's totally okay. You got to just trust that as you continue coming to this practice, as you continue holding that space, the right things will come through at the right time. And don't forget that the universe is always communicating to us through the feedback loop. So maybe in that day, you know, you don't just sit down and have like this lightning bolt of inspiration. But then you get up, you go to grab your coffee, and you notice this book that's on your countertop. And you're like, I don't know, something about this book seems important today. So you pick it up and you flip to a random page and you start reading, and you're like, holy, like this is just igniting so much inspiration within me. Or this is exactly what I was talking to this person about the other day. Okay, this must be important. And really being able to trust those hunches, to trust those nudges, and to stop, drop, and roll with it. I also want to invite you to allow Spirit, Source, God to take up more space in your life. I always start and end every day the same. I talk to God. I ask God to use me to do his work. Already in that, I'm like, use me. Like I am a vessel. I am a channel for you to work through. And by starting and ending every day like that, it's like I'm building that relationship. The same way that when you're in a romantic relationship with somebody, or when you like have a friendship, you have to check in with them. You have to talk to them. There has to be some lines of communication open. That same goes for your relationship with Spirit. If you want Spirit to use you to do its work in the world, how are you acknowledging it in your everyday life? How are you inviting it in? Because that's the thing, is we were given this amazing, amazing ability of free will. We were given that gift. And so God will work through you if you allow him to. It's not just going to happen without your consent. That's a gift that we have been given. So build that relationship with God. Literally treat it as if like it's any other relationship that you would in your life. In fact, put it on highest priority, because it is really the most important relationship in your life. You got to be willing to put your troubles in his hands, right? You got to be willing to surrender and know that you're going to be taken care of when you do that. It's kind of with this masterclass, like, yes, I prepared. I did all the things that I could, but I also just had to trust that when it came time to actually get on live and speak, everything was going to come through as it needed to come through. And I reflected on this and realized I've been doing this for years with my exams. So just so you guys know, yeah, I did an aerospace engineering degree. I've always been very academic, but I really attribute my academic success to my relationship with God and spirit. Like, I was straight manifesting like 90%, like no one's business. Everyone in my, university class was like, how are you doing this, Sophia? And I was like, yo, it's because I'm a channel. Like, I just, I let it come through. And yes, I prepare. And yes, I studied. And yes, I created notes. But the morning of my exam, I didn't do anything. I didn't look at a single thing, because I knew that there had to be an element of trust and surrender, and just knowing that when the time came, that God was going to be there with me. So create space for God in your life. Create space for miracles in your life. Create space for not knowing. That is when the real magic is going to come through. And that's really the key to being a channel at the end of the day. And also talk to him, work with him. Maybe you don't want to refer to it as him. Maybe that's triggering for you. If it is, I would ask you to reflect on why that is. But whatever terminology you want to use, however way you feel most connected to this intangible source of creation is perfect. Okay, so that being said, I want us to do kind of just a little meditation exercise where we can practice listening for the answers. So I think that's a big part of using our intuition, being the channel, is cultivating our ability to listen. I say this all the time. There's like this never-ending stream of wisdom coming to and through you, but your ability to hear it is only as loud as your willingness to listen to it. So let's all find a little comfortable position here. Take a deep breath, exhale, sigh it out, closing our eyes. We're just going to start to slow our breath down. So I'll walk us through the first few inhales. We're going to inhale for 5 counts and exhale for 5 counts. And as we slow our breath down, we're really allowing ourselves, our nervous system, to shift from that fight or flight response to that rest and relaxation. So we're literally shifting our nervous system from the ego mind to the spiritual mind, from conflict to peace. All right, ready? So first breath, we're going to inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, inhaling, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhaling, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just continue at this rate, allowing yourself to really feel that breath. Feel your belly expanding as you inhale and contracting as you exhale. Feeling the seat that you're sitting on. Listening to the gentle hum of your computer. or whatever other sounds you can hear in your environment. Really using your physical senses to tune into this present moment. Listening with your whole body, with your ears, listening with your eyes, noticing the blackness behind your eyes. Listening with your body, what sensations can you feel right now? Can you feel the sensation of your clothes hitting your skin? Even as the mind wanders, continuing to come back to the breath, to those physical sensations, grounding yourself in the present moment. Nice. I want you to start to imagine that you are sitting underneath a waterfall. And as you sit, the water rushes through the top of your head, through your neck and shoulders, through your midsection, down through your legs and feet and into the ground. Notice how the water never stops flowing. Just continues to rush through you top to bottom, clearing dead debris as it goes, clearing any dust or cobwebs, making your physical body a clear channel for this flow, this stream of consciousness. Can you hear the waterfall? Listen for it. You're tuned into the non-physical. All it takes is your willingness to listen for you to be able to hear it and experience it. So now, using the tools we learned, I want you to ask a question, one that's been weighing on your heart. And instead of trying to answer the question, I want you to just leave space for the answer to come through. Allow there to be a moment of emptiness where you truly feel like you're listening, the way that you would listen to the sound of the breeze, to the rushing of the waterfall, the crashing of the waves. Allow yourself to ask this question and simply listen. Notice if any answers come through. If they do, are they like the anxious kid in the class with his hand up, saying, pick me, pick me? Announcing its opinion loudly, explaining itself. Or is it that quiet, gentle, concise, simple response that may not even fully make sense in the moment that you hear it? It brings you a sense of peace. The more you can practice this exercise, the more you'll start to notice the difference between these two voices. They'll even start to sound very, very different to you. They'll start to feel very different in your body. You'll know when it's the voice of your own ego or when it's the voice of something out of this world speaking to you and through you. You're ready, I invite you to open your eyes. Come back to a space here. I'd love for you guys to share some feedback. You can unmute yourself for this part. I really want to hear what you experienced in that short little meditation and maybe anything that came through while we were going through the material.
I felt like when you're underwater, you feel that, like, I didn't hear it at first. It was more of the like pump, 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 pump. And when like you're washing dishes or something, and the more that water is hitting the dish, like the more the dirt, the stuff is coming off of it. I was kind of picturing that in my body. And like for me, a thing is like eczema in my skin. And I caught myself originally kind of thinking about like washing off the areas that I specifically have my skin concerns. And then I stopped that because I realized that was like not actually helpful, because I was recognizing that as bad. And that's part of the problem of why I have it in the first place, because it's this constant pattern of like judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped focusing on that, and I just said I allow source to clear out whatever is needed. And rather than focusing on that, I just focused on the image of like the dirt just like clearing. And like I started to feel more relaxed in my body, and it started to feel like the water could flow through. Like it started first here and then deeper and then deeper, and then eventually the water was going through my entire body because the dirt was being
Nice. I like that you noticed that you were in that cycle of judgment, and that you really created space for God in the meditation. You're like, whatever needs to go I trust you to remove from my life, instead of you feeling like, oh, I have to get rid of this one thing. That's really great. Okay, Elena, you were next.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm just laughing because Jess and I had a little interaction on the camera there that she picked up on. There were two things that you mentioned that that landed really well for me. And it was, number one, the timing of the channel and being very open to just when it's coming through. And especially someone who used to be very attached to like my patterns, my structure, like scheduling out my day, my list. I still love all those things, but what I've started to realize for myself is that there's been a lot more ease in my work and how I show up by like stop, dropping, and rolling with what comes through when it's coming through. And then the second one, which goes hand in hand with that, is about creating space for spirit in your life. And this is something that I've intentionally been practicing like very recently in my life, where it's like a relationship, like you said, that needs to be nurtured. And I even relate it to the relationship with my body. It's like you're in constant communication, but are you actually creating space for those messages to be received? Are you, reaching out in the first place?
Mhm.
So I like that you touched on both of those, because I noticed that they were two very transformative practices for myself recently in terms of becoming more of a channel in my life.
Nice. I love that. Thanks for sharing your personal experience. Jess, tell us what's up.
Me and Elena had a little high five moment. And then when we see each other laugh, we kind of just keep going. Okay, so I don't know if anybody sees this. When you close your eyes, I don't see this all the time, but like when I closed my eyes and you mentioned the waterfall, I immediately kind of got a glimpse of like red, and it like stayed for a little bit. So it wasn't black, it was red. And like I started kind of coming to the notion of like being powerless, which is really strange. Well, not really strange, because I've been feeling that way a little bit in like my job role. I've moved into like a new sort of um, role where it's kind of like there's a lot of learnings and a lot of like correctional paths for me to take, just because it's something that's quite new and there's a lot of nuances. And a lot of the time I get told from, people that are like higher up, and just because, they've been working at something longer, they've been, they have some like a director title. They think that like, what could this girl possibly teach me that I don't already know, sort of thing.
Right.
And so a lot of the time when I mention something, I notice like a lot of resistance or like dismissive attitudes. And I've come to like kind of just like take it and like, send it love, let it go, and be like, these people, have some like things that they got to deal with, if that's the way that they're treating it. But it's kind of funny because as I was like feeling that sense of like powerlessness, and you were like walking us through everything, I kind of just got the notion of like, what is it, the fact of like either these people maybe feel a bit threatened because I've gotten that a lot, so they become dismissive in a sense, and they're not willing to like be encouraging or helpful? Or is it just like the notion of like, I understand that these people may feel a bit of like hesitancy to new ideas, and the fact that like I might teach them something that they might not know, and me teaching them something that they don't know, they feel like not below me, or is like they don't feel as though they're as powerful as they thought they were in their role, sort of thing. And so like I start like going through my head in these instances. But the whole time I've been walking through that, I kind of just like realized, I was like, I gotta like get out of my powerlessness and feel as though like I do have something to offer. Whether or not like people feel that way, that's their problem. It's just like coming to know that I obviously have a lot, that when I say, there's weight to it. And so I shouldn't really like hold so much thought to how they kind of perceive it or how they take it and receive it.
Right, because in a sense, by seeking their validation or their recognition, you are creating the powerlessness in yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's an interesting reflection, and there really is that feedback loop constantly from life showing us what is going on in our ego mind, what's going on in our spiritual mind, and to recognize that maybe your own need for that validation is being reflected in them. Well, they're not giving it to you, therefore like creating more of that feeling. of like powerlessness. I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have something super worthy to share. And I think the more that you can lean into your own value without expecting anyone to recognize it, but just like really claiming it for yourself and just being like, I know that just because I'm younger, it doesn't mean that what I have to share is not valuable. In fact, I can offer this brand new perspective that maybe they would never think about because they haven't walked a day in my shoes. And they haven't grown up in the world that I've grown up in from the eyes that I've seen it in. You know that you have so much value to share. I know you have so much value to share. And I think when you start to recognize it with yourself without needing anyone else to see it in you, that's when it's going to be seen. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Emma, what's up?
I wanted to, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to throw it back to what you were saying about the egoic mind at the beginning. Because I actually had a realization yesterday. So my husband and I have been married for almost a year, which is super exciting. And it's been a rough year. We've gone, like, our house has had no heat, no hot water, no stove for a lot of the winter. So, like, survival partnership. It's been fun. But so I was thinking the other day, because he had said, I want to plan our anniversary by myself. I want it to be a surprise. I want to have all these things together. And I had this sensation where it was like that true, not true thing that we were talking about before, where I said, when it's true, it kind of goes down into my root. When it's not true for me, it kind of comes up into my chest and gets tight, like an anxiety.
Interesting.
So we were literally at dinner, and he was telling me these things, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling this sensation right now. And I told him, and I said, I don't not trust you, but something's telling me that I don't trust you to plan this, which I know isn't true. And he's like, that's hurtful. And I said, I know, because it's not true. And I think what's more true instead is I don't trust myself to just let you lead the way. I was like, I think this isn't a problem with me trusting you. I think this is me having trouble releasing something and just being okay, not being in control, not knowing, and just like really just letting him be in his masculine without having to be in mine, and just surrendering completely to my own femininity and letting the universe guide him to what he knows that I want, and planning like this perfect thing for us. So yeah, that was the thing where I kind of realized I needed to make this shift out of my egoic mind and into the point where I'm like, no, I can trust him. It's good.
Yeah, but I love how you use the trigger and you didn't just be like, okay, let me sit with this. Like, I'm feeling this right now. You were like, let me question this.
Yeah.
Really find out what it's trying to tell me about myself, because I know it has nothing to do with him. And that is the most powerful perspective that you can hold with any trigger. So yeah, that's really amazing that you did that. And just shared it with, it's great that you can share it with your partner in such a healthy and safe space where you know that it's not going to lead to an argument. And I think that's probably because he knows that you take full responsibility for your feelings, you know? So that's beautiful, Emma. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I'm just going to wrap up by sharing with you guys a little bit about this wonderful 6-week program that I've created literally for you. And what really inspired the Spiritual Reboot Camp was I, 2 months ago, got back from 6.5 months abroad, and I was honestly expecting to feel so alive and rejuvenated and connected to my purpose. But surprisingly, when I got back, I felt so disoriented. And I really felt like I was not in tune with my channel. I was not in tune with my divine wisdom. And I felt disconnected from my purpose. I was like, why am I even here? Like, what do I even know? Like, it's such a big world out there. And, you know, I just went on this huge journey, came back, and really, like, I don't have anything to show for it, but I know that something's different inside me. There was a transformation that was happening, and I was in the void of it. So maybe you're finding yourself there in the void as well. You're like, I know that there's something that I'm on the edge of. I know that I've done all this inner work, that I've healed through so much, but I'm having a hard time really connecting with the new version of myself. I'm having a hard time feeling connected to the people in my life, to where I'm existing, to how I feel in my body, and to my divine purpose, my divine voice, my mission. I was in that same position 2 months ago, and I decided that I was going to create a plan to walk myself through it. And that's exactly what I did. And 2 months later, you can see me here, literally in a whole new energy, starting my coaching business, literally so freaking clear about what I am here to do, at least for right now, because I do believe that our mission changes from moment to moment to moment. And we go through phases in our life, and that's beautiful. But I'm very clear about what I'm meant to be doing right now, and I'm taking courageous action, and I'm really proud of myself for it, and I want to help others do the same. So that's exactly who the Spiritual Reboot Camp is for. It's really going to be that that container that encourages you to tap back into your relationship with Source and share it in a way that is meaningful, in a way that makes a difference in other people's lives, and in a way that feels super fulfilling and aligned for you. We're going to break down some of the habits that we've created that maybe aren't serving us. We're going to allow ourselves deep mental, spiritual, physical rest, really allowing ourselves that grace period, which I know is hard to do, but that's what breaks the momentum of the old and allows space for the new you, the new version to be reborn. We're going to really do some practices to help us build that relationship back up with the divine. We're going to create the new vision, and then we're going to inspire the courage to walk the path and really be that person in your day-to-day life. This is going to be a 6-week program. We're going to be meeting live once a week. We are going to have 6 guided meditations for you to take home and keep. And we're also going to have weekly homework exercises and worksheets so that you can start to actually implement this. I'm going to create a community group chat so that for the entire 6 weeks, like, we're constantly checking in with each other. We're supported by this group of people who are on the same journey, which is a really, really powerful space to be in. Yeah, we're going to just hype each other up. We're going to have the accountability, because I know sometimes how hard it is with self-led courses to walk yourself through the material, right? To actually sit down and do the meditations and do the worksheets. So I think having that group accountability is going to be really, really important, and going to ensure that you actually get the transformation that is intended. So yeah, this is going to land at $1,222 USD, but for you guys who are like my soul tribe, honestly, I thought about it and I was like, it was going to feel so expansive for me to offer like a major discount. So I'm giving a 75% off discount for all you guys who are here live. The early bird price is going to be $333 US, which for like 6 weeks in this really powerful container, I think is honestly a no-brainer. And the early bird is going to be available until Friday at midnight. So you have some time to sit with it, think of it. I'm going to be sending an email out with like all this information. And honestly, if you liked what we talked about here, if you just like being in this kind of energy with, you know, other people who are really tuned in and are like, I'm ready to commit to evolving into that next best version of myself. I'm ready to recommit to my spiritual practices, recommit to my divine mission. This is the space for you. And, you know, obviously, if you like working with me and hearing all the, you know, fun, crazy stories of my life, there is a lot more where that came from. And I'm really excited just to welcome you into that space. So yeah, any questions you have about it, you can send me a DM, you can send me an email. Like I said, I'll be sending up like a follow-up email. You're going to have the recording of this masterclass so you can rewatch it whenever you want. But it's been a real honor to have you here. I'm honestly blown away. I thought I was going to be lucky to have like 5 people, and here I am with 10. So like, thank you guys so much. I genuinely love you all. And yeah, if anyone wants to like drop questions, drop feedback, do it out now. If not, then we're going to close out. Thank you for creating the space for us, Sophia. Love you. Love you so much, Moya. Thank you so much for being here, man. You killed it. Thank you for this. So thank you. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Elena. It's been Gracias, bebé. Me gustó mucho. Gracias. Te extraño mucho. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.